You know who is Hanuman? Okay. Some of the glories of Hanuman here. The greatest devotee of Ram, and some of the accomplishments. He introduced Ram to Sugriva. He flew to Lanka. He gave Ram's message to Sita. He warned Ravana. He wholeheartedly accepted the defection of Vibhishan into Ram's camp. He brought the medicinal herb that gave life back to Lakshmana, and he prevented Bharata from immolating himself. So those of you that are familiar with Ramayana, you know these are just little sound bites that are much longer narrations, lengthy descriptions of Hanuman's service to Ramachandra. An interesting comment made by Madhvacharya on the flag of Arjun's chariot is an emblem of Hanuman. And according to Madhvacharya, the Hanuman that was on Arjuna's flag of his chariot, the whole of the Bhagavad Gita message was spoken to Hanuman, not to Arjuna. He has some partiality for Hanuman. The painting depicted on the screen is Madhvacharya, is one of three manifestations of Vayu. The Vayu was the father of Bhima. Vayu was the father of Hanuman, and Madhvacharya was not the son of Hanuman, Vayu, but an angsa of Vayu. So they have that affinity for one another naturally. The story of Ramayana has had layers and layers and layers. It's fascinating in many ways. And with the help of the acharyas, different acharyas have rendered the lessons of Ramayana in different ways. One of the celebrated one is Govinda Raja, amongst the commentators on Ramayana. He's one of the most celebrated ones, and much of this is taken from him. So going back to the appearance of the various demigods and other personalities, because Ravana was such a terrible personality, he was disturbing the whole universe. The demigods collectively came to Lord Vishnu, prayed to Lord Vishnu for his assistance in dealing with Ravana. Through Lord Brahma, he informed, I will come, and I request all the demigods to make arrangements for them to give birth to offspring that have powers like theirs, and they can assist me in my conquest of Ravana. But on the other hand, we heard this yesterday evening with Mainda and Dudvida, to participate in Ramchandra's pastimes, to get they can give some service and they can receive his association, basically. And so yesterday we heard about the two sons of the Ashwini Kumaras, and now Hanuman is the son of Vayu. According to Madhvacharya, maybe you know this is part of his teachings, an essential part of his teachings is there's hierarchy amongst the jivas. And as far as Madhva's teachings are concerned, the two that are in the topmost position of jivas, in the hierarchy of jivas, is Lord Brahma and Vayu. And he has different scriptural references and reasonings and so forth. But Vayu is such an important person in Madhva's teachings. So Hanuman, being the son of Vayu, he had powers, as was instructed by Vishnu. He had powers like Vayu. So when he was little, he was hungry, as sometimes children are hungry, and he saw what looked like a fruit in the sky, and so he went zooming away in the sky. He's already got a club under his belt. Look at that. And as he was zooming towards the sun, the demigods became concerned. Who's this? What's this? So Indra sent a thunderbolt weapon to stop his forward progress. And the thunderbolt weapon hit Hanuman in the jaw, and thus he got the name Hanuman, because it has something to do with his jaw. There you see the other devas witnessing all of this. And when Hanuman was hit by the thunderbolt of Indra, he went crashing down back to the earthly realm. And when Vayu saw that his son was harmed in this way, he suspended the flow of air throughout the whole universe. And that was a big problem for the demigods and everybody else in the universe. So the demigods approached Lord Brahma. Help, we can't breathe, please do something. And Brahma invited them to come with him. They came before Hanuman, and at his instruction, and in the presence of Vayu, they gave various benedictions and ornaments and powers, and they heaped praise upon Hanuman. Indra was now satisfied. The airflow went back into the universe. And here's little Hanuman decorated with all these fantastic powers, besides the powers of Vayu, powers and powers and powers. And as a little child would do, to speak of a little monkey, he would do naughty things. And the painting is meant to show some of the naughty things, but one of the big naughty things he would do was he would disrupt the austerities and the yagyas and the activities of the brahmanas. Being disturbed, I'll just read. On the strength of the gods' blessings, Hanuman had become fearless. He played in the hermitages of the rishis, mischievously throwing about their paraphernalia and stopping their sacrifices. So they gave a curse, and here's the curse. You will forget your great power. Only when you hear your powers described by another will you again remember them. So he started becoming a little more calm, a little less mischievous as a little Hanuman. And it doesn't say when it took place, anywhere, at least in Valmiki Ramayana, but just before Hanuman made his leap across the ocean, he offered his prayers to his guru, Vivaswan. And so somehow, at some point in time, Vivaswan gave instructions to Hanuman. Now we're approaching the topic for this evening, which is the crossing of the ocean and the obstacles he met. So as we heard yesterday evening, that when Angada understood that there was a big distance, because Sampaati had said that Sita has gone to Lanka, and how are they going to get to Lanka? So Angada decided that this is before Sampaati. They got to the tip, the southern shore. The son of Vali, who was now the next in line to become the king, decided to fast until death, because if they went back, they were given 30 days to report back to Sugriva. They thought, if we come back empty-handed, and he'll just kill us, better we fast until death. So there's all these Vanaras lying, except for Hanuman, lying on the ground by the sea, and Sampaati sees them. Now Sampaati, there's a long story. Sampaati was the brother of Jatayu, and they would enjoy flying here and there and flying high in the sky, and one time they also were flying towards the sun, and as they were flying towards the sun, they got very close to the sun, and the elder Sampaati was concerned that the younger Jatayu might be burned by the heat and the rays of the sun, and so he opened his wings to protect his younger brother, and when his wings got burnt, and so he fell to earth, and he was unable to fly anymore. So a vulture that can't fly is going to go hungry. So there he was, perched on the top of a cliff somewhere, and he looked down, and he saw lunch, because he didn't have to fly very far. He could just jump from down the hill. And as he got closer and closer to the Vanaras, he heard them speaking, and in the course of their speaking, mention was made of Jatayu, his brother, who he hadn't seen so long. So he wanted to find out from them, what do you know about my brother, Jatayu? Please tell me. And so they described what they knew about Jatayu, and then he in turn described the whole history of he and Jatayu and how he came to this situation. And they then in turn asked Sampaati if Sampaati knew where Sita was, because they were sent by Sugriva to find Sita. And he said, yes, I know where she is. She's 800 yojanas that away, off on an island named Lanka. And so the Vanaras started to consider, this is where we were yesterday, there's a little much bigger picture of Sampaati and how small the rest of everybody else is. But they wanted to know amongst the Vanaras who could travel the whole distance all the way to Lanka, we heard yesterday evening. And consequently, when no one could make the leap, then Jambavan, there we see Jambavan the bear amongst the Vanaras, he remembered, because he was present when all this the benedictions were given and the Brahmanas cursing Hanuman that he would forget, he reminded Hanuman of his powers. And we heard the Brahmanas had cursed he would forget his powers until somebody reminded him. So here's Jambavan reminding him. And when Jambavan reminded him, suddenly, not only he remembered what he had forgotten, but his powers started to manifest. And nice description, his body got bigger and bigger and really big. And he got ready to make his leap across the ocean on top of Mahendra Mountain. And that's where Kishkinda Kanda ends and Sundara Kanda begins. Here's a nice painting of Govindaraj. I mentioned his name, the Sri Vaishnava Acharya, who wrote extensively, very elaborately on Ramayana. And one of the things, amongst the many things that he wrote about Ramayana, is he considered, Ramayana is a form of the Supreme Lord Ramachandra, much like the Bhagavatam in its 12 cantos represents the form of Krishna. The first 2 cantos, the feet, etc., etc. So in his writings, it goes the same way from Balakanda, the feet, and Ayodhya Kanda, and then Aranya Kanda, and then we just ended Kishkinda Kanda. Then comes Sundarakanda. So at the beginning of Sundarakanda, these kandas or sections or cantos are indications of the form of Lord Ramachandra, Yuddhakanda and Uttarakanda. Okay, so Hanuman, Sundarakanda is beginning, and Hanuman is offering prayers. This much is in Valmiki Ramayana, to Surya Dev, his guru, and to Vayu, his father. And there's long, beautiful descriptions of how he prepared himself in supplication, crouching, his bodily posture, his summoning all of his strength, because he got a big mission. Of course, later, when he goes to get the herbs, he has to go back the other direction and even further. But anyway, it's a very beautiful description. I'm going to read some of it. Hanuman expanded his body to gigantic portions. Moreover, while grabbing onto the mountain with his hands and feet, he inadvertently crushed many deer underfoot. Pausing for several moments, Hanuman concentrated, composing his mind in preparation for the great leap. Because of the weight of his huge body, the entire mountain began to shake. Thus, large snakes, while vomiting fire from their mouths, bit into the rocks, causing them to split into thousands of flaming fragments. Very beautiful writing. The Vidyadharas flew up into the sky to witness the spectacular jump. Thereafter, Hanuman crouched down, summoning all his energy, and the mountain peak began to crumble as spurts of water gushed forth from the immense pressure. Gandharva couples that had been sporting in the heavenly regions, along with numerous rishis that resided there, quickly fled the mountain out of fear. Hanuman then declared to the monkeys, "Either I shall bring back Sita, or I shall uproot the entire city of Lanka along with Ravana." No, he didn't do either one. But he did better than that. So a celebrated verse that's loved by many of those who love the Ramayana narration. It describes just before he makes his leap. Hanuman, who raised his head and neck, intending to cross the formidable ocean which none else could accomplish, looked like a leading bull. And there's lots of commentary on all of this. This is a devotee of the Lord preparing themselves to carry out some service. So it's like, the Lilamrita, the whole section, a lifetime in preparation. That section of Lilamrita. Just like an arrow released by Raghava would fly, I too will proceed with the speed of the wind to reach Lanka ruled by Ravana. I know some devotees of Lord Ramachandra, and they recite these prayers before they start their japa. It's like preparing their mind to do the mission that it's very, very difficult to achieve, but very fixed in their determination and very fixed in their focus and their mission. Hanuman drew in his breath and tensed his muscles. All of a sudden, he sprang into the air like an arrow shot from the bow, of Lord Rama. It's a nice way to begin your japa, huh? The description is as he sprang from Mount Mahendra, all kinds of things were disrupted by the airflow, the trees were uprooted, and so forth. Due to the force of Hanuman's jump, all the trees on the peak of Mount Mahendra were uprooted and thrown into the sky. In reply to their exclamations of wonder, Hanuman soared like a huge cloud and stretched out his tail. As Hanuman sailed through the heavens, the uprooted trees followed in his wake and then plummeted into the ocean. Simultaneously, various colored flowers that were blown from their branches fluttered down and scattered over the surface of the water, creating a particularly beautiful sight. So he hasn't encountered obstacles yet, but he's going to. So there's several paintings. This is one of a certain artist, I forget his name, but he makes nice paintings of Ramayana. Looks like he's jumping into the ocean instead of soaring above it. This one, he's soaring above it, carrying his club. Here he also has a club. And there's the Vanars cheering him on, and all victory to Hanuman. And Hanuman's ready for anything. Many nice paintings of the scene of Hanuman's leap across the ocean. So the first obstacle of the four that he encounters is Mainaka. The description of Mainaka is very beautiful. The Mainaka rose from the sea with a golden glowing peak at the top, and the personality of the mountain manifested and spoke to Hanuman. Here's from the Ramayana. Mainaka emerged from the sea with a great roar, sea water falling with a crash on all sides. The golden-peaked mountain rose swiftly, shining beautifully like many suns, with nagas and kinnaras sporting on its slopes. How that became very quick, because the Mainaka mountain was within the sea. And from Ramayana, here's this nice phrase. We're going to see this phrase several times. Kritecha prati kartavyam esha dharma sanatana. So we're, in ISKCON, we're accustomed to understanding what sanatana dharma is. It's the service to the Supreme. And here in Ramayana, it's teaching a lesson saying that acknowledging a favor from others that is done to you, that's Sanatan Dharma. Acknowledging the favor and reciprocating with that favor that has been rendered unto you, you reciprocate. This is Sanatan Dharma. And there's some history of how Mainaka was considering this was his Sanatan Dharma. The favor that he had received was two. First of all, Mainaka was approached by Samudra, the personality of the sea, because Samudra had received from favor not exactly from Hanuman, but the one who Hanuman was serving, and not exactly from Ramachandra, but from an ancestor of Ramachandra. And the ancestral help was from the same line. King Sagra, who was an ancestor of Ramachandra, he had helped the sea. And at the time when Sagar was searching for the missing 100 sons, he was digging up the sea, searching. So he expanded the boundaries of the ocean, thus a service. And then on another occasion, Agastya Rishi had become very angry and was drying up the sea, but Sagra enabled the sea to become replenished. And so because Samudra had received some service from an ancestor of Ramachandra, he, Samudra, wanted to repay that service that was done as Sanatan Dharma, or an expression of gratitude for some service that had been done. So he, Samudra, approached Mainaka, but knowing that Mainaka had received some kindness from Hanuman's father. And the description is given during Satya Yuga. During Satya Yuga, mountains flew. They had wings. It's just a story, right? It's not. We're not supposed to believe that mountains had wings. Mountains had wings. The Puranas are not fiction. They may describe things that are beyond our experience, but that doesn't mean it's a Harry Potter story. You're going to have to take your child to another room or something, please. Do the needful. Mother, do the needful. It's not the child's fault. It's the mother's fault, because the child's just being a little baby. Please take your child. Those of you from families, you're used to all that stuff, and I'm not, so please pardon me. Life of sannyas. So, the living entities that were being subjected to mountains that fly lodged a complaint with demigods, because when the mountains would come in for a landing after flying somewhere, they'd land and crush what was underneath them. The explanation is given that as an elephant moves with his big feet, he's not intending to harm creatures underneath his feet, but his feet are big and his weight is heavy, and as an elephant's movement would crush living entities, what to speak of a big mountain? So they lodged a complaint with the demigods, please do something. And so Indra volunteered, I'll do something. With my thunderbolt weapon, I'll cut off their wings. So he started cutting off the wings of mountains. But Vayu had some particular affinity and friendship with Mainaka, and so Vayu, with his power with the wind, blew Mainaka into the sea, and Mainaka landed in a place that was covering a hole that was the Bila, the hole to the lower planetary regions. Somewhere there's a Bila that leads to Bila Swarga, the subterranean heavenly planets. And so it was a nice service that Mainaka was doing, and so Indra left him alone. plus his thunderbolt weapons weren't going to be so effective going into the sea. So Mainaka was very happy. Samudra approached Mainaka, please do a service for the son of Vayu, who has been very kind to you and saved your wings. And so it's a combination of gratitude and gratitude. So you get the picture. There's, particularly now, it's Mainaka who's done, going to render a service to Hanuman in reciprocation for the service that isn't even rendered by Hanuman, but Hanuman's father. So similarly, some of us may be the recipients of some kindness that our founder Acharya did. And he established many, many, many things. And we're on the receiving end of that kindness that he provided us. And so there's this Sanatana Dharma principle to repay. I mean, it's just cultured people understand this, and not so cultured people don't really understand it. But people that understand it, it's a moving force in their life. It's a moving dharmic force in their life. Having received some kindness, some service, some benefit from someone, I mean, it's essentially the principle of bhakti. We're being maintained, nityo nityanam, chaitanas chaitananam. Prabhupada quoted this, eko bahunam yo vididati kaman. There's one who's supplying the necessities for everyone. And where's the gratitude for the one who is supplying all of our necessities? And there's no end to describing what are those necessities that were being supplied. The air that we breathe, and the water, the rain, and so many, 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 many things. Just, the forces of nature. I'm going to spin out a little bit. A couple weeks ago, I was in Houston. During the Thanksgiving weekend, I was in Houston. And while there, I gave a 13-part seminar on Light of the Bhagavad. And Light of the Bhagavad is a description of learning lessons of life from scenes of nature. This is learning lessons of life from the pastimes of the Lord and his devotees. But some people, it was part of the presentation, there's a certain group, a minority group in China, that they're nature worshipers. Everything that they do for, throughout the whole year, they have festivals and festivals and festivals that are honoring nature. And when they eat their food, they don't have the same, they offer to Vishnu or Krishna, but they offer to the demigods that are ruling nature. They have this in their culture, and they make an offering from the demigod that helped them provide whatever it is that they have, and they offer to their demigod before they take their food. So it's nice. It's vestiges of Vedic culture. That's how I see it. So, having received some benefit, the Mainaka wants to repay the benefit. There's this nice reference, it's the converse from Mahabharata. Now, the history in Mahabharata came after the history of Ramayana, which means there are sections in Mahabharata that's making reference to the historical section that preceded it in Ramayana. In that Mahabharata section, there's Lakshmana confronting Sugriva for being disrespectful or ungrateful for the service that had been rendered to him by Ram. They made a friendship, and when the friendship was made, the vow of friendship was I'll assist you, you assist me in regaining our kidnapped wife. So first one to receive his kidnapped wife back was Sugriva because of Ram's efforts. So for the 4 months of the rainy season, Sugriva wasn't expected to do anything because it was the 4 months of the rainy season. And when it drew to a close, Ramachandra sent Lakshmana, go remind Sugriva that he's being ungrateful. 4 months of the rainy season is over, he should do something. Now, there was an arrangement, and he found out what that arrangement was. But Lakshman this is a verse from Mahabharata where Lakshmana is speaking to Sugriva, quoting Lord Brahma, who is angry at an ungrateful person. This is the Sanskrit translation. Atonements have been prescribed for one who kills a brahmana, one who drinks liquor, and one who commits theft, and one who violates a sacred vow, but not for one who is ungrateful. There's Krita and Kritagne, the ungrateful person. There's no atonement for it. So, gratitude, or the absence of gratitude, the ungrateful person. I hadn't read Panchatantra. Maybe some of you have taught this to your children. But I was discussing this topic with Mother Urmila. Maybe some of you know who she is. A Prabhupada disciple, very scholarly lady. And she was sharing that she learned this principle of the ungrateful man from Panchatantra. Panchatantra, you can look it up. It's available online. It's a story of a brahmana who is very poor, and his wife sends him to go find something for the family. And so he goes to a well. He's very thirsty as he's traveling through the forest, and he looks in the well, and there's 3 animals and a man. And the 3 animals are very grateful being rescued by the brahmana, but the man is the ungrateful one. And it's a whole story, without going into the whole story, because it's a story within a story within a story, but it's for children, stories about animals and people to understand lessons of life. And the lesson that this Panchatantra is meant to depict is being ungrateful is a destructive force for the person who's ungrateful, or the converse. The person who's grateful, because these 3 animals, it's a monkey, a lion, and a serpent. And they're very grateful being rescued by the brahmana at the bottom of the well. But the ungrateful person is the man, and the man gets destroyed, not by the brahmana, but by circumstance. It's just a reference to this same principle of gratitude. So here's a painting showing the wings of Mainaka, and the little depiction, the story that Vayu had saved Mainaka from Indra. So because those services had been rendered not by Hanuman, but by Hanuman's father, and not by Hanuman, but by the one who Hanuman was serving. So the Sundarakanda section says the mountain assumed a human form, stood on its peak, requested Hanuman to rest. The reason for arising from the sea was to render some service. And what's Hanuman going to do? Because he has a mission. And his mission is go find Sita and reassure Sita that Ram is coming, and here's a message from Ramchandra, soon I'll come, etc., etc. So he has a mission. Now, here comes someone that wants to do some act of kindness to reciprocate, and the reciprocation request is take a little rest, You got a long journey ahead of you. Take some refreshments. Take a little nap. Take it easy for a while. And he doesn't want to do that. But he doesn't want to be he doesn't want to be dismissive or not ungrateful for this expression of gratitude. So what to do? He doesn't want to indulge himself, but he wants to stay focused on his mission. So he reaches over, he touches the mountain. He says, I made a vow to Ram and Sugriva. I must finish my task before the day ends, when it becomes night in Lanka. So I am unable to stop. In night, because Rakshasas, when the night comes and the sun sets, their power increases manyfold. So I have to, it's an island filled with Rakshasas, so I got to get there before the night comes. So I can't thank you, but no thank you. With an explanation. I mean, he's a very accomplished person, Hanuman. He knows how to speak. He knows how to decide. He knows what to do. So he descended, gently touched Mainaka, giving his blessings by doing that. And with that graceful, loving exchange, he didn't indulge himself. Now, one of the first obstacle is a mode of goodness obstacle. In the course of life, supposing there's some piety in your life, and if there's some piety in your life, without fail, there'll be the fruit of piety. That is, something will come your way that's enjoyable and, seemingly very nice and, can easily bring a sense of indulgence or complacency. And not only through material piety, but spiritual success. It's one of the previous visit, we had some discussions from Madhurya Kandambani. And one of the obstacles that arises from bhakti is bhakti successfully performed. And bhakti successfully performed may result in some honor or some position or something. That's the fruit of bhakti properly performed, what to speak of just piety, material piety, doing something, receiving something in exchange. And what do you do when that comes? So it can be, doesn't have to be, but it can be an obstacle if one wants to be an enjoyer of the fruits of piety or the fruits of bhakti successfully performed. It's real easy. It's real easy because the tendency of a living entity, we come to the material world because we want to enjoy. We want to enjoy independently, specifically. Not we want to enjoy the position of being the servant of Krishna. We want to enjoy independent of Krishna. So it's fruits of piety or fruits of successful bhakti performed can result in complacency. And complacency diminishes the enthusiasm. Just like we know from Nectar of Instruction, Utsahan Nishchaya Dayayat. Everyone knows that verse, right? Tat tat karma favartanat. So there are 6 principles. Shadbhir bhaktir prasiddhyati. There are 6 principles that help bring about the stage of perfection. And the first one is enthusiasm. Enthusiasm can be diminished or withered when there's complacency. And complacency can easily come when there's indulgence in the fruits of past piety or the fruits of bhakti successfully performed. So the solution isn't stop being pious and stop being successfully performer of bhakti, but don't be the enjoyer of those fruits. So what do? There's distraction, as we know from Bhagavad Gita. The mode of goodness has symptoms of knowledge and happiness. So be in the mode of goodness, and there's some happiness, but don't be the indulgent enjoyer of those things, or material opulences, or not just something necessarily that you did, but it's inherited from an ancestor or your family or something. So it's an obstacle on the path of bhakti. Is an obstacle on Hanuman's journey to find Sita. It's an obstacle on the path of bhakti life. So if we stay the message, the lesson from Hanuman, stay fixed in your purpose. What's the purpose? Krishna is to be pleased. So it's part of Krishna is to be pleased, is to be respectful to those who are extending something to you out of kindness. So you don't just ignore them, don't dismiss them, don't be impersonal, but do so, be personal, at the same time stay focused on your service, whatever that might be. This is a devotee's comment. Maya tells us take it easy, we say take it serious. And so without abandoning culture, including culture in how you respond to facilities that come your way, stay focused, stay determined, be very, start with a clear understanding of what your purpose of life is. Not te vidu swartikatim hi Vishnu. Prabhupada quoted it so much. People, from Prahlad Maharaj, people don't know. Hiranyakashipu, people don't know, and in general, people don't know the purpose of life. Swa artha, one's self-interest. Swa artha, na te vidu swa artha. People don't know their self-interest. They don't know their purpose of life. And so if we begin moving down the path of purpose of life, it's really easy to get distracted from the purpose of life when there's obstacles. Even when the obstacle, like in this case, is a mode of goodness obstacle. That's one of the easier ones. A nice example of this comes when in Brihat Bhagavatamrita. This is a nice painting. It's Jayanta giving mantra to the guru of Gopakumar, giving him his mantra. And from his mantra chanting, many things happen. There's fruits that come from his mantra chanting. He has this power that he can go to this place, that place, the other place, the other place. And one of the things that happens when he gets to a place that seems really enjoyable, he keeps going. This is a quote from Brihat Bhagavatamrita. Wanting to avoid being ungrateful, Gopakumar never stopped chanting. He might justify abandoning the mantra only after attaining its final goal. If we were to stop chanting before then, he would not discover the mantra's full benefits. Thus, to stop the chanting prematurely would amount to ingratitude, for without having bothered to receive all the mantra's benefits, how could he properly acknowledge them? Nice. I mean, this comes when Gopakumar reaches Tapaloka. And Tapaloka is Bhuvar, Swargaloka, Maharloka, Janaloka, Tapaloka. It's way up there in the hierarchy of the cosmology, just before Brahmaloka. And the persons there are persuading, trying to convince Gopakumar, you don't need this chanting, just do meditation, because the fruit of chanting is the meditation, so just do meditation. And he likes the meditation. He's experiencing things and seeing things within, and he likes it. But he doesn't want to abandon chanting at the same time, because he's been given something. He wants to experience the fullness of the value of that something that he's been given. We've all been given. It's a nice lesson. So continue and continue and continue from that place of gratitude, because it would be ungrateful if we don't. And the mantra then bestows many nice things upon Gopakumar and those of us that chant. So that's a lesson, the first obstacle. It's just taking in the execute is the first part of Sundarakanda, and it's in the execution of some service that we may be given, like go back home, back to Godhead service, and or whatever the description you might want to put in that space. When you do, and you have some service to perform, there's going to be there's obstacles in executing that service. One is a mode of goodness result. After displaying his character, next to test his competence on behalf of the celestial rishis, demigods, and Gandharvas, Indra approached Surasa, the mother of the Nagas. Who are the Nagas? Who are the Nagas? Anybody want to say what the Nagas are? Well, the mother of the Nagas is going to make her appearance in the course of all this. But they're heavenly beings in the form, just like you see in the painting, that are serpentine looking. They have powers. So Indra wanted to test the competence of Hanuman, because in the course of his work, he's going to meet far more formidable obstacles than Surasa. So he wanted Surasa to help the Devas and him see how is Hanuman going to handle an obstacle in the mode of passion. So as he was passing by, Surasa rose from the sea. She had a big mouth, and she opened up her mouth and ordered Hanuman, "Come into my mouth." So the statement is, there's an intelligence that's required to deal with such obstacles. To demonstrate the incomparable prowess and intelligence, upayena, of Hanuman, Indra asked the snake goddess to assume the form of a disfigured Rakshasi as big as a mountain and rise before Hanuman. So there she is. And she opened up her mouth really big. So here's the etymology of the word. So rasa implies tasteful distractions which demigods place on the path of sincere spiritual aspirant. Sensual enjoyments which have a devouring tendency. You can see this is commentary by persons who have studied this and written about it. This isn't necessarily a Sri Vaishnava commentator. This is an ISKCON commentator. So rasa has another meaning. That's when our material desires increase. When material desires increase, it's a challenge on your focus on carrying out your mission. Mode of passion kind of endeavoring. So mode of passion is an obstacle for pure bhakti, because pure bhakti has a goal, achieving the unobstructed service to Krishna. Here's the third meaning. As desires increase, one has to put in greater effort. There's no limit to fruitive endeavors. This is the mode of passion obstacle. So there she is, opening her mouth really big, and she said to Hanuman, I have a boon from Lord Brahma, and that is, anyone who comes in front of me, they can't escape being eaten. So now competence is being challenged, and he's not going to be disrespectful to Lord Brahma, but he has a mission to fulfill. So it's not just a mode of goodness obstacle, it's a mode of passion obstacle. So what does he do? He made his body bigger, and as he made his body bigger, she made her mouth bigger. So it's 8 miles, 16 miles, 20 miles, and Hanuman kept expanding his body bigger and bigger, and she made her mouth bigger and bigger. And then suddenly, Hanuman made himself really small and entered into her mouth and came out her ear. So he fulfilled the boon of Brahma without violating the boon of Brahma. And it's described specifically in Ramayana that all the while he didn't become disturbed. He continued smiling. His whole demeanor didn't become agitated and angry, and he just was acting in a very intelligent way, that his competence was being displayed. After enlarging himself to 100 yojanas, that's pretty big, he reduced in size, dove into her jaws, and came out her ear. And then he, with folded palms, stood before her and said, I've honored Brahma's boon, now let me pass and fulfill my mission. I wish you well. And she was very satisfied. So he, without getting into a combative spirit or competitive spirit, he just used his intelligence and his power and took care of the situation very nicely, always, all the while remaining very peaceful and humble. So this is not always, but in general, humility is appropriate even when we're confronted with passion. Sometimes strong action is needed. The strong action comes next, the mode of ignorance obstacle. So there's another painting. He goes in the mouth and out the ear. And so the Naga goddess resumed her original form, because she had just assumed this Surasa form, and she praised Hanuman, and she blessed him to be successful. So here's some details from Aranyakanda. Before Hanuman and those that were sent in the southerly direction, there's mention in the Aranyakanda section that Sugriva, I'm ahead of myself. The Naga goddess Surasa in Valmiki Ramayana is one of the 10 daughters born to Kashyapa Muni by his wife Krodhavasha. So Kashyapa was given in marriage a number of daughters of Daksha. one of the daughters of Daksha became the mother of the Naga goddess. The Naga goddess was named Surasa, and she assumed this form at the request of Indra to manifest or display the competence of Hanuman, because he had a big service ahead of him they wanted to see. And here's some references if you want to write them down, where this is all discussed. You'll find also in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, Chapter 6, these verses. Okay, so that's obstacle number 2. I don't think I'm going to go through all this because of time. The bottom part, Hanuman did not allow the opulences arising from his past meritorious acts to inflate his pride. Pride is destructive. Maybe you know the story. This is a nice example, a very nice example. When Scholar came to Vrindavan searching for debate, and he came before Rupa Goswami saying, I've been told you're the most scholarly person in Vrindavan. I'd like to engage in a debate with you. And Rupa Goswami didn't have any interest in debate with a puffed-up scholar, so he said, oh, there's no use in having a debate with you because you're so brilliant. He said, if you acknowledge that I've defeated you, then you put it in writing. Here's a paper, you sign. So he signed, because he had no interest in it. So there are obstacles. There are sometimes things that we can do, and sometimes things that you just let them go. There's a celebrated person, a Lutheran theologian who didn't live so long ago, wrote the following: God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. I presented this one time, I forget where it was, and somebody told me afterwards, in Alcoholics Anonymous, they have like groups of people that are trying to overcome some addiction, and this is something that they teach them. This is a phrase that's well known in the alcohol addiction circuit, Alcoholics Anonymous. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So, when there's obstacles in life, sometimes there are things that you can't do anything about it, and that's okay. This is another way of saying the same thing. I'll just share this quickly. Some years ago, I had a desire to reside in Vrindavan during the Kartik month. This is before I started yatras and things like that. Because I'm service-minded, I had a problem, how can I stay in Vrindavan for a month? But Burijan Prabhu, who was always ahead of me in spiritual life, he was living in Vrindavan, involved with the Gurukul, and then he started the VIAG, which was in the month of Kartik. For the whole month, students would come to also reside in Vrindavan and take lessons from different teachers. You know, when they had different curriculum, and they could. So I volunteered to teach something. You know, I did it for like 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, whatever it was, living in Vrindavan, teaching at the VIAG. And Burijan was very kind. We had lunch prasadam together every day. And there were different topics that we would discuss during lunch prasadam. And one of the things that I brought up to him, to his attention, was it came to my attention there's such and such a thing going on involving somebody, and, what to do to help the somebody in that difficult situation that they're in. And he said something that's still with me. It's similar to this. He said, there are some things that there's really nothing we can do. It's something to do with that person and their relationship with Krishna. And don't play Krishna's role and try to fix the situation. It's between them and Krishna. Just let it go. So, the wisdom to know the difference. There's some things that there is something we can do. An obstacle that we can do something about, and sometimes there isn't. So that's a little lesson from Hanuman's leap across the ocean. Surasa. Now there's something, the next one coming up is something that he could do, and that's Simhika. And Simhika, this is what I was making reference to. This is the section in Sundarakanda where it's mentioned. And it says there that Hanuman was flying in a very, very high altitude. And the pathway of the siddhas and charanas. Now, where do the siddhas and charanas reside? Bhuvar Loka. Bhuvar, and Swarga Loka. The upper region is the heavenly region. This is the Bhur Loka region, and in between is the Bhuvar Loka. So he was flying really high. And as he was flying really high, there was a shadow that was being cast. And this Simhika had a power that she could stop forward motion by capturing the shadow. Going back to the previous Kanda, Kishkinda Kanda, before Hanuman made his journey, there was a description by Sugriva to Hanuman that there's a certain very famous demon, Angarika, and he's going to meet her. Very celebrated demon, mode of ignorance person. So as he's flying, heading for Lanka, all of a sudden he felt that his forward motion was being checked. And not only his forward motion was being checked, but his altitude was going down. He was plummeting down and down and down. And as he came down and down, he saw this Simhika, again, with her mouth wide open, ready to swallow him. So he didn't have any dialogue with her as he did with Surasa. He just dealt with her. After enlarging his body size, Hanuman, whose body was as hard as a diamond, became very small, entered her mouth, and began to tear the demon's vital parts. He cleft her heart in two and burst out from her chest. Simhika fell crashing back into the sea. So sometimes powerful action is required. Now, powerful action isn't required in all circumstances, but sometimes it's required. And the devas and the sages, they knew how powerful Simhika was, and they were relieved. Hanuman was created by Lord Brahma for the purpose of killing terrible Simhika. Of course, he had many other purposes besides that one. So now, obstacle number 3 is the obstacle of encountering envy, or the personification of those who are opposed to the principles of bhakti. They're addicted to vikarma, or sinful desires, So we're advised to avoid that association. And supposing that association tries to swallow you or harm you, take strong action. Of course, it depends on circumstance. The power that she had has a name. Chaya means shadow. So Chaya Grahi is she could capture others by capturing their shadow. Maybe you remember from the description of which is the Alvars who had some mystic fellows with him, and they raised money by pillaging to build the temple? Tilamunga, yeah. So one of the persons with him had the same power. He could capture people. He could make them motionless by their shadow. Anyway, it's more than one person's had. Simhika is one, but others. And so some persons are dark, and they're envious, and they try to hide their envy or conceal their plans and their motives and do hurtful things. And they're very dangerous people. In general, obstacles in the mode of ignorance. So we've gone through goodness, passion, and now in ignorance. And you don't fool around when there's an obstacle that's in the mode of ignorance. Something strong may be required. Yeah. And while doing that, always stay mindful of Krishna. That's all circumstances. You know the verse? Smartavya satatam. Let's say it together. Smartavya satatam Vishnu Vismartavyo najatu chit Sarva vidhi nisedhasyor Etayor eva kinkara. Always remember Krishna or Vishnu. Never forget him under any circumstance. All of the vidhis of Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti, they're kinkaras or servants of this one principle. So regardless of the obstacle that you face in life, don't forget Krishna. And always remember Krishna. I think I'm going to skip this summary. Now comes the fourth obstacle, and there she is. Lankini. Entering the city on a full moon night, so it was already night, Hanuman was checked by Lankini, the presiding deity of Lanka. She saw Hanuman, she challenged Hanuman, and she hit Hanuman. She slapped him really hard. And so he punched her. And he punched her with a clenched fist, but not so hard that she would be killed because she's a woman. So he was being careful. When she was struck by Hanuman, she fell to the ground. Now, she wasn't knocked out cold, but it was enough that, she knew she shouldn't mess with Hanuman. And then when she recovered, she stood up and she begged Hanuman to spare her life. Another painting of the same pastime, Sako. And then she revealed to Hanuman that Brahma had told her that the end of the whole Rakshasa clan would come when she was overpowered by a monkey. So she concluded, this is it. You're that sign that Brahma said would come, and the Rakshasa whole program was going to come to a close. So she allowed him to enter the city, and then she disappeared. When she disappeared, She didn't just like poof disappeared. She ran to Ravana to tell Ravana what happened and the portent of what it meant. That this is a sign of big trouble. So now comes a little summary of this fourth. After the modes of nature comes false ego, or one who's in the bodily conception, because she spoke in the same way about herself. Lankini manifested her form as soon as she noticed Hanuman. Here's the phrase from Ramayana. And she spoke of herself that she's the protector of the city. So, aham and mama, these two conceptions of false ego. We know the phrase is throughout the Bhagavatam, aham mameti. The bodily conception of self, the I, and then mine, and the doership mentality. And she also indicated that she is the representative of Ravana. I'm obedient to the orders of the great demon King Ravana. I am protecting this unassailable city. So the doership and independent mentality. So these are very clear signs where she was coming from. And here comes Hanuman, who is a saintly person. She's unable to recognize a saintly person because she's absorbed in her barking dog program, protecting the unassailable city. So conditioning in false ego can be very detrimental. And sometimes we have to deal with that. Sometimes we encounter people that are in that state. Unwillingness, defensiveness, suspicion. I find it pretty amazing when our book distributors can approach people and they don't know who the person is, and they want you to buy something, and it's really pretty amazing. When I reached Atlanta before coming here, there was a devotee that was going up and down outside the airport. It's a really busy airport, the Atlanta airport, and just approaching people, and people were taking books. There's it's the Christmas marathon, so it's nice to speak about book distribution. I don't know how active everybody is here, but it's a nice time to distribute books. There's a devotee connected with Chicago Temple. He has the same name as Paramakaruna. You know him?
I haven't seen him, but I get his emails. He gets my emails.
Okay. Well, regularly, he sends me photographs of, because his thing is going to colleges. Bangsidari knows. So, do you get his photographs when he? Okay. Like maybe 10, between 5 and 10 of these in the course of a week. Somebody at a college, this was Arlington, Texas, was the last one, and they had got a stack of books like that. And they're standing in front of a camera as he's, they just bought a stack of books. And then another one, and then another one. Arlington was a good spot for him. It's somehow people just, they don't know him from nobody, and they end up with a whole stack of books. And whether it's a whole stack of books or one book or whatever it is, I find it pretty amazing. I mean, I did it myself, but it's still amazing. People that are going this way, all of a sudden they're going that way, just by the association of an enthusiastic devotee. And the power of our disciplic succession carrying them forward. So, Christmas marathon. When as I mentioned, I was in Houston during the Thanksgiving weekend, which is just before the Christmas marathon. And much to my surprise, the book distribution minister, Vijay, was there. Do any of you know who Vijay is? You know. Yeah, nice devotee. I believe he's a disciple of Hridayananda Maharaj. And he's a brahmachari, very dedicated to the principle of book distribution. And he, was asking me every class, say something about book distribution, because he's going to spend the whole month. He may be relocating from Los Angeles to Houston as his base. They have a nice brahmachari ashram there, and so distributing books is his thing. And their thing is distributing books. And so, a lot of enthusiasm was generated. I don't know how it's working with the community there, but I'm sure by his presence, at least awareness, if not activity, that's in the direction of book distribution, because it's so pleasing to Prabhupada. No question about it. It's an austerity, but it's very pleasing to to our founder Acharya. So back to Hanuman entering into Lanka. Lankini represents someone that has an unwillingness to receive saintly association, what to speak of by a book. Here, let's just read the text. Ego of others may obstruct the flow of devotional service. Hanuman had a solution. After being repeatedly polite to Lankini, when she tried to forcefully harm Hanuman by slapping him hard, he acted strongly and effectively, only to ensure his mission could go on without hindrance. So that's it. Lankini prevented entry of Hanuman into Lanka. Egotism prevents the entry of Guru into our lives. Hanuman ki jai. How are we doing with time? 8:15. Is this a nice subject? Any comments? Oh. You have a portable microphone. There's people listening online apparently.
Okay. Hare Krishna Gurudev. So I have a question. So Hanumanji didn't kill Lankini because she was female, but he killed Simhika.
He didn't what?
He didn't kill Lankini. Hanuman.
Oh no, he didn't.
Yeah, because she was a female. Right?
That's one reason.
And then, but he killed Simhika.
There's only one he killed, Simhika.
Yeah.
And otherwise, he didn't kill.
So is that okay?
It's okay. No, she slapped him hard, and he's got a mission. It's not like I'm a big guy, so don't slap me hard. I have a mission. So he did what he did, so she would allow him to proceed. That's what happened. She said, "Please spare me," and he spared her. He wasn't interested in doing anything other than carrying out his mission. And he did what was needful. Okay? In the back.
Maharaj, I have two questions, Maharaj. One is again on the topic of this a woman demoness. Is there is Simhika the first demon that Hanumanji killed? I kind of can't recall any other demon that he killed before.
No, she's the first. I don't know if there was even a second one,
Right.
but it was certainly the first.
So I was just thinking if Maharaj, you any insight on Lord Ram killed Tadaka and Lord Krishna killed Putana. All were women as the demonesses that
The first one,
Yeah,
not just, but the first one.
the first demon that they killed.
It's a nice. I've had this question. I've had discussion on the topic, and there's different views on the topic. One of them is obvious. That one of the first things that's needed, taking Bhaktivinoda Thakur's description of Krishna's killing of demons. There's obstacles for bhakti when Krishna's killing a demon. It's removing an obstacle for a sadhaka on the path of bhakti. So the first obstacle on the path of bhakti is affinity for the opposite sex, the enjoyment of on that platform. So that's one explanation. And I'm not remembering the other ones at the moment. My memory is very poor on not just this topic. There's a couple of other ones. In the beginning of tomorrow evening's class, I'll address that topic.
Another question I had was, it was very nice. First time I heard or realized this topic, that the mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance, sort of within the first three demonesses, and how Hanumanji dealt with each one. So in our lives, when we face obstacles, my question is like, how should, or even should we even try to classify obstacles, or try to classify obstacles in one of these categories, especially to determine how to deal with them? Or should we always just approach it with tolerance and humility in all cases?
Well, tolerance and humility in all cases, yes. However, depending upon what the obstacle is. So, I don't know, in response to the first part of your question, I don't know if it's so critical that the obstacle X is a mode of goodness, obstacle B is a mode of passion. If you classify it according to modes, or if with intelligence you customize your response to an obstacle according to the obstacle. All the time being respectful, and as we heard with Surasa specifically, it's a subtle point, but it's an important point. He was smiling. His demeanor didn't change. It's an obstacle. Sometimes obstacles can make you grumpy or something. And it's not to say that when he dealt with Simhika, he became, he lost his countenance. He just did needful. My sense is, it's not the distinction between which mode or not can help you understand, but more important is the mood of service will help you understand. And then you can take the appropriate action due to the mode of service and the intelligence that Krishna gives from the service that's appropriate for the circumstance. So back to the should we be tolerant? We don't lose tolerance because of circumstance. It's not created by or destroyed by circumstance. So that tolerance is a quality of goodness. and you're in the mode of goodness, then your discerning capacity is more broad. Tolerance doesn't mean do nothing. We don't necessarily become angry, but take appropriate action in the mood of service. He's coming, just relax.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Thank you so much for the wonderful lecture. So I have one follow-up on Paramakarana Prabhu's question, and also I have a question. So I'll go for the follow-up first. So how do we recognize
Speak it slowly. How do we do what?
How do we recognize the obstacles, impediments we are facing in our devotional service, whether they are in the mode of goodness or passion or ignorance, in which mode basically it is? How do we?
Well, you're asking the same question in a different way, but it's the same question. My answer to that question is two parts. You recognize, according to Bhagavad Gita chapter 18, or in chapter 14, the symptoms of this mode, that mode, the other mode. You understand by symptoms, but my other part is more important than when you face an obstacle, discerning, is it this mode, that mode, or the other mode, is staying within the mood of service, and intelligence will come, because each circumstance is going to be a little different than the next circumstance and the next circumstance. That's life. And if without discernment, apart from the mode, but what's going to be effective in serving Krishna in the best way? That's where attention should stay. So back to what your question is. So there's more verses in Bhagavad Gita on the modes of nature than any other topic. Become conversant in Bhagavad Gita's description of the modes of nature, and that's how you discern, by symptoms. But that's secondary to the primary.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. Another thing I'm not able to understand is Samudra was favored by the ancestors of Lord Ramachandra, Sagara Maharaj, and Mainaka got favor from the father of Hanuman Vayu, right? So in that case, but Samudra came and requested Mainaka to show gratitude to Hanuman.
Yes.
So the little bit I am not able to somehow correlate, because he has gratitude for ancestors of Lord Ramachandra.
He has what?
He has gratitude, for the ancestors of Lord Ramachandra.
Yes.
Sagara. So
Yes.
how did he showed up that gratitude? I didn't understand. But
because Hanuman is in Ram's service. The servant is a representative of the one who is being served. So here comes Hanuman, who is the representative representative Ram. Ram is an ancestor of Sagara. I want to do something in reciprocation with Sagara's kindness. So let me do that via the servant of his ancestor. That's the connection.
So does this Mainaka and Samudra has any relationship? Or
It doesn't say. It's just, Samudra knew, he went to Mainaka, say, help, and he was happy to help. Doesn't say relationship other than that.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thank you so much for that nice class, Maharaj. Maharaj, it has been seen sometimes for a single service there are many devotees that they are engaged in the same service, and then sometimes there are disagreements For
No.
so are they? Is that considered as obstacle in that service? Even though the service happened, some devotees might think, "Oh, I wanted to do it in a better way, but it did not happen." And other devotees might think, "So is that an obstacle or is that not an obstacle?"
It's just human. And being human is good. That there are differences is good. It's not an obstacle or a problem. Now, how do you deal with the situation? That's another thing. But, that there's differences, that's quite natural. It's not an obstacle.
Thank you
Now,
so much.
so then how do you work it out? How do you work cooperatively?
That is my second part, Maharaj.
Huh?
That is the second part of my question. Like how in that particular case, even we will feel disheartened. So how can we? So should we just deal with the humility? Okay, whatever you want, let's do it that way.
Are you married?
Yes, Maharaj.
Do you and your wife always agree on everything?
No.
No.
Maharaj.
He said with a chuckle. So how do you work it out? And there's two answers that are principle-based, and then there's details behind the principle. Love and trust, give and take, and no one's keeping score.
Okay.
Second, I heard this from Tamal Krishna Maharaj, who heard it from, I heard this from Shyamasundar, who heard it from Tamal Krishna Maharaj. Prabhupada is in Vrindavan. He's, there's somebody departing. There's a departure scene. And the Prabhupada is being served lovingly by so many devotees. And very honestly, very heartfelt, Tamal Krishna Maharaj said to Prabhupada, Prabhupada, they love you so much. And it was thick. And Prabhupada said, their love for me will be shown by how they cooperate after I have departed. This is right on the topic of gratitude or kritagya. So that's something that can help people that have a difference about doing something. How do you work it out? Love for Prabhupada, gratitude for what we've been given. So you can squabble, that's the word, over stuff. Or you can, instead of, I'm right and you're wrong and this is the better and that's the lesser, instead of going there, there's what's pleasing to our founder Acharya, to spread the mission. And, being cooperative with one another that's going to be a better way. So you're back to the preamble. Should I just be tolerant? Tolerate what? I got more intelligence than they do, and I have to tolerate them. There's differences. Some like it this way, some like it that way. So be respectful of other persons and how they like to do things. And sometimes it goes this way and sometimes it goes that way. And when that cooperative mood is there, you'll be far more a dynamic team as husband and wife, or a group of people doing a project, or a community building a temple or something. Like book distribution. Because I'm bringing that back because it's that season for us. Some are gifted this way, some are gifted that way. And there's differences, and that's nice. Oh, it's all needed. Differences are needed. Diversity is needed. Then the challenge is the unity in diversity. So that takes spiritual vision. And if you don't have spiritual vision, you'll have division, dissension. behind you.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj. So today we learned this definition of
Why the ring back? Because of the speaker. Okay, try again.
so. I like the definition. Acknowledge the favor and pay it back.
Yeah.
The way I interpreted it was like when I came into this world, like Lord gave some qualities as gifts, so that's a favor done to me, and I
Yes.
would like to pay it back by using those qualities in the right manner.
Got it.
So this ties to the second part of finding one's purpose. I am interested in getting your input about what is the process of finding one's purpose from a spiritual angle, because a lot of wisdom literature talks about passion, purpose, and I just wanted to know how does one finally understand one's purpose from a spiritual perspective, and what's your thoughts on that?
My thoughts are going to something I like very much about. Srila Prabhupada was being interviewed by the New York Post. It was a recording. It was a radio broadcast, so it was a verbal interview. Swamiji, you've come to this country. You must have had some mission that you brought to the country. Could you share with us what is the purpose of life? First question from a radio, New York Post. Prabhupada, know yourself. Pause. Reporter, know yourself. Prabhupada, know yourself. They didn't unpack it, and you can easily unpack it. But from our founder Acharya, that's a starting point. So now, it's similar to your question. How do I know myself, if that's my mission? And then my response to that question is, there's layers, and there's layers, there's more refinement, more refinement, more refinement. So let's start with this one. Nityara Krishna Das. Who I am? I'm the eternal servant of Krishna. So mission of life is to revive that which displays who I really am. I want to know who I really am. And I'm eternal servant of Krishna. And there's obstacles for that. Modes of nature and guna and karma and jnana and karma, and so there's obstacles. That's our topic, obstacles, and the path of your mission. So, but I want to connect with who I really am, and not who I'm not. And then it gets, so how do you know? By taking up that fundamental and pursuing it and refining it and refining, and then it becomes that it gets more in focus and more in focus and more detailed and more specific and more specific. All the while carrying out regulative life externally and internally cultivating that inquisitiveness and pursuit of who I really am. And it gets refined and refined. But from the position of the position of the mood of service. The mood of service means anukulyena Krishna anushilanam. Krishna is to be pleased. I'm his servant. My existence is to please Krishna. I'm meant for his pleasure. And then refine it and refine it and refine it. you had something?
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. I had a small follow-up question on Radhakunda Mataji's point that she brought out with regards to Sagar, that he was grateful for whatever was done in the past. But then we also have that incident when Lord Ram was requesting Samudra Dev to give way to Lanka, and he did not respond, and then he had to, like, after 5 days he became angry, and then that's when he came out. I mean, that history. So how do we put those two things together?
That question has come up before, and I don't have a clear answer to that question. Chronologically, and then there's logically. Chronologically, Samudra already knew who Ram is, and that Hanuman is the servant of Ram, and he wanted to give back to service to an ancestor of Ram who Hanuman is in the service of. And then chronologically later, he's not responsive. It seems like a contradiction. So that's the question. Why? How do you reconcile the contradiction? I don't have a good answer. Somebody's raising their hand. They have a good answer?
Guru Maharaj, I'm hearing a lecture series of Dushyant Sridhar, who is a speaker in Sri Vaishnava literature, and it's in English, and he is actually giving a lecture series on Ramayan, and this he gave 2 days back. What is the reason for that? So one reason he says is that the Samudrarajan says that the rivers are his wives. So basically he was actually, along with his wives, he was collecting gifts to give to Rama. That's what was the delay was. That is the delay was. And now we all know that Rama did put his arrow on the bow, and he was ready to fire. And we know that once Rama takes it from his quiver, the arrow cannot go back to the quiver. So he was still holding the arrow, and then the Samudrarajan asks, Rama asks, what should I do with this arrow? I was about to shoot at you. Now that you have come, what should I do with this arrow? And then Samudrarajan requests, there are people, there are demons who are creating bad things in the northwest part of India, or the Thar region, where today the Thar desert is, and the arrow is actually, you can use the arrow to shoot it there. And Rama actually fires the Brahmastra to the region, and that is where the whole Thar desert is created. Now this is referenced by Kuresha, who is the disciple of Ramanacharya, in his Atimanushastavam, where he says that, hey Rama, you were able to take that arrow and fire it from the southern tip of India to the northern west part of India so long, but I don't understand why you did not use that arrow to just shoot it to Lanka and destroy Ravana. So I really do not understand what are your actions and why are you doing this? So this is referenced in Atimanushastavam.
I didn't get the answer to her question. The question, I'm sure, 100%, 150% sure that there is an answer. And I'm sure that the Sri Vaishnava Acharyas have commented on it. And I know some persons who know what Sri Vaishnava Acharyas have said on the whole of Ramayana. But I didn't hear the answer to her question. The question she asked was, on the one hand, Samudra knew who Ram was, and later on he acts as if he doesn't know who Ram was. He's not being responsive when Ram says, come here, I need your help.
Yeah, so the answer is he delayed. He did come, but he delayed because he was busy in collecting the gifts to give to Rama. Because Rama has come to his place and the Lord himself has come to his place. He, along with his wives, who are the rivers, have gone to collect gifts to give to Rama. And then he apologizes for coming late. Now, in between, Rama actually asks Lakshmana to get the quiver, and then he puts the arrow on the bow. So the whole point was he didn't disrespect Rama, but he showed it as a disrespect by coming in late.
I'm a little uncomfortable.
I can send you the video.
I believe it. I believe what you're saying is what this authority had to say. I don't disbelieve that you're representing him properly. I'm pausing on the response. In other words, Sri Vaishnavas go by Valmiki Ramayana and not the multiple other Ramayanas, because there's multiple other Ramayanas.
Kamba Ramayana as well. Kamba Ramayana as well.
Okay.
Yeah, Kamba Ramayana is also an authentic source that we go with. Kamba Ramayana was the...
I know what it is. I know what it is. Now I have another pause. But that's okay. You're from that tradition. You know what the tradition says. My understanding is Valmiki Ramayana is the gold standard, period, not and Kamba Ramayana. But that was my, before this conversation, my understanding that their acknowledgement there are others, and they're nice. They have lovers. They're lovers of Ram. In any case, whichever is the source or two sources, I'd like to see what the exact text is before I say, now I'm feeling more comfortable about it, because my understanding wasn't just it was a delay. My understanding was days passed, not just gathering gifts. So anyway, I'd like to look at the section more carefully before I say, yeah.
And I will try to get the scriptural reference, whether it is Valmiki Ramayana or Kamba Ramayana, where this exact he's
okay, but how many days was it? How long was the delay between when Ram was asking Samudra to come and before he came? How much?
I don't remember the exact count.
Some days.
Yeah.
A number of days. That's a lot of gifts or something. I'm not clear.
Sure.
I'm not clear. I'm not doubting that you're repeating what this fellow said. Or I don't know the fellow, or the Prabhu master or teacher.
Yeah, he's a very one of the popular, respected Sri Vaishnava discourses.
Okay, thank you for that. So you do your homework, and I'm going to do my homework.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. I have two questions. The first one is regarding the gratitude. So you mentioned, I've heard from you several times that gratitude is a seed of bhakti.
Speak slower.
Yeah.
There's a feedback. Why don't you move your place of sitting also? That'll probably help.
So I was saying that I have heard from you several times that gratitude is the seed of bhakti.
Yes, I like that expression.
So it's natural that in the bhakti path one feels gratitude towards the teachers and family who supports the platform from which we perform bhakti.
Natural.
But in a grahastha life, there is a limitation to how much.
Speak slower.
As a grahastha, there is a limitation on the amount of time we have in terms of reciprocating gratitude.
Not only grahastha life. Take my word for it. So
how do we prioritize in terms of showing the gratitude?
My answer to that question is blocks of time. You can't do everything unless you're an unlimited person, but we're not unlimited persons, we're limited persons. Your question is how do you prioritize? And my answer is blocks of time. And so the main, that's 3 times, focus is Krishna is to be pleased. There are many duties. There's a nice verse in the Bhagavatam. Supposing someone runs with their eyes closed, there's no harm, even if they fall. Because if they're running with their eyes closed means there may be many. But if you please Krishna, the many is taken care of. So you as a grahastha and me as a sannyasi, anybody as a human being, Krishna is to be, whatever you do, prioritize pleasing Krishna. And if you're unable to do this and you're unable to do that and unable to do so many things because not just being a grahastha, just we're tiny, we can't do everything that we want to do and feel we should do, etc. So pleasing Krishna is the foremost thing. So do your sadhana very nicely, and you offer that to all the people that you want to be of service to.
Okay.
You follow?
Yes. Thank you, Maharaj. My second question, it's related to the discussion from yesterday. Is it okay to ask?
Related to?
A discussion from yesterday.
Yesterday, okay.
So the first offense from Dvita is that he committed a mental offense that Lakshman was weak, right?
Yeah.
After he got...
That's the first one. The first one was disrespecting him when he was being introduced to Sugriva and Ram.
Okay. So there was a question from a devotee in this regard that was the mental offense had much greater effect because it was a different yuga, Treta Yuga. I guess the presumption for that question is coming from the Bhagavatam verse related to Maharaj Parikshit and Kali personified,
Yes.
where Maharaj Parikshit is not killing Kali, but he sees, the reason is that he sees the good qualities in Kali. Where
So that's why?
Yeah,
No.
yeah, that was my question. Does it give like a
Well,
license?
if this is a new one, I'm saying no. It's a new one to me. He understood Krishna has his plan. There's a cycle of 4 yugas. This is the personality of the next yuga. I can't interfere with Krishna's plan. I can't kill him because Krishna has a plan. And he's the personality of that plan.
Okay.
Now he taught good qualities. I mean, I've never heard that one before.
Okay. Yeah, I heard that reasoning before, that it's okay to have...
When you hear something like that, my recommendation is, where's the scriptural authority, please?
Srila Prabhupada Bhagavatam. Yeah.
It's not like, it can't be true because I never heard it before, like this discussion over here. But where's the scriptural authority behind this view or this understanding? Okay, next.
No, that was my question.
That's it?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. I think we're something online.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. When Hanuman encountered Surasa, he reacted with humility. Whereas when he encountered Simhika, he reacted with strong action.
Yes, he did.
How do we decide which course of action to be taken?
It's a similar question. I mean, if you don't have intelligence, you're in trouble. And if you have intelligence, you're going to be in better shape. So where does intelligence come from? Super soul. Matakshmichir Gyanam Abohanam Cha. So be connected to super soul. And then super soul connection confirmed through scripture. So if someone is super aggressive, Surasa was in a different mode. By demeanor and by other symptoms, Hanuman understood right away. It's just like when Hanuman was being, the first time, Sugriva's up on top of Rishamukh mountain, and he wants Hanuman to go and find out, friend or foe, who are those two down there carrying bows and arrows, and what's going on here? Are they friend or foe? Maybe it's a trick. So he did a body change, or he took the shape, the form of a Brahmana, and immediately, just being before Ram and Lakshman, he disclosed everything because he understood. First had their countenance and demeanor. He had that capacity. So in this case, Hanuman had the capacity. Surasa is this, Simhika is that. We may not have that capacity. We can't change shapes either, but we don't have the capacity to discern immediately. We had this, so what do? You go by symptoms. And as you know, but I'm a fallible being, I make mistakes, and so my discerning capacity is compromised because I'm a conditioned soul that I make mistakes. So you still have to go by principle. There's symptoms, and you have a sense of character based on symptoms. We had this in the Lachwa. We had this nice discussion on 6 Goswamis. And one of those discussions was Raghunath Bhatta Goswami went to see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for a second time. So all the way from Varanasi to Puri. In the course of that journey, he encountered a very appeared to be very elevated person, Ramdas Vishwas, Ram Bhakta, this and that, all kinds of good qualities, always chanting, very humble, carried Raghunath Bhatta's property on his head, etc., 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 etc. Seemingly like super qualities. When he got to Gambhira, and he wanted to introduce his friend, Lord Chaitanya just got up and left, didn't look at him to acknowledge him. He was surprised, because doesn't seem right. He brought him again second time, same thing. Then Raghunath Bhatta went to see Ramananda Roy and Swarup Damodar. So they came to Lord Chaitanya and made a request, please meet him. Lord Chaitanya said, you ask me this again and I'm leaving Puri. And he got up and walked out. Wow. So there's commentary on that section. Even Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, what to speak of Swarup Damodar and Ramananda Roy, the topmost position, they couldn't discern that this man, they found out later. They interviewed him, and he was constantly chanting with the view of becoming one with Ram, merging. And that's why Lord Chaitanya would meet with it, but they couldn't discern it. So if they can't discern, then what about you and me? I'm responding to your question. By symptoms, but we can't necessarily understand all by symptoms. Why are we doing what we're doing? I don't know how many Bhagavad Gitas you read before you read Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita. I read 8. They couldn't even pronounce the title. But, but somehow Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita did it. And then so is it possible we can make a mistake? We're conditioned souls. Our discerning capacity is very compromised. But by symptoms. And then there's super soul. And then there's scripture. And as much as there's an alignment, then we can invest faith in the person. Or now back to the question, it's a conflict that's this and a conflict that's that. By symptoms. And then the discerning capacity, acknowledging our intelligence is compromised. We can't always discern properly. They were thinking at the other end, he looked like, a really special person. They couldn't see.
I have one question, Guru Maharaj.
Okay.
Yesterday and today together, you mentioned about three.
Ultimately, Krishna will reciprocate with the desire of the soul to be in his service. It's Krishna's reciprocation with the soul that wants to be in his service. Krishna will reciprocate. It may take some time. That's okay. It's a little bit like his question about, the goal of life. It's not the same, but it's similar. Krishna, it's a sincere desire. Krishna will say, it may take a while and it may go through some changes and things. But it's the relationship with Krishna and a sincere soul. And if there's course correction needed, he's got the best GPS system to take us to the goal. Okay.
Guru Maharaj, yesterday and today together, you mentioned about three different offenses. The first thing with the mental offense, verbal offense, and today
we talked about it yesterday.
Physical offense. It makes MVP. And each of these characters from Ramayana, because of their bad association or inherent demonic qualities, they did some Vaishnava aparadh. And even then, they got the most valuable or most viable punishment. I'm not sure. Yesterday, you mentioned about Dvivida got liberation. And even in this case, the four obstacles. So how do we see that? Though they did an offense, a Vaishnava aparadh.
Well, there's a correction. I mean, you're in the association of devotees, and most likely, because you're human, you've made some mistakes. Now, what about that? Are you fixed? Are you finished?
Yeah, I'm fixed.
Okay, so don't worry.
Though they made
you carry on.
Though they made an offense, they got some kind of liberation.
Well, you don't know what the result was. It doesn't say Dvivida went back to Godhead, liberation. It doesn't say that. He got freed from the reactions of his past misdeeds. That much. That kind of liberation.
Thanks, Guru Maharaj.
But we want more than that. I mean, the scriptures advise us more than that, not just neutralize, but the mood of service. And then refinement of the mood of service. Okay, I think we're ready for Mahaprasadam. Thank you very much, Prabhupada Ki Jai. The deities